The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we had technical difficulties with our last guest. Her feed was very unstable, so we had to cancel that interview. Went to the top of the hour, and we're back. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And we're coming to you around the world on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and Channel 54 on the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. You can email us anytime, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, or on any of the multimedia pages that we have, and social network pages at X Zone Radio TV. My guest this hour, X Zone Nation, is a gentleman I've had the pleasure of having on the show before. His name is, are you ready for this? Dr. Brooks AGNEW. And Brooks, welcome back to the X Zone. How are you, my friend?
Oh, thank you so much. Good to be here.
What have you been up to since you and I last chatted? About 4 years ago now.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm still working full time and still working on the electric trucks. We still have those prototypes operating. Great. And I wrote a couple more books since the last time we talked, and still doing research here and there, speaking at various conferences, staying busy.
What are you researching on now, Brooks?
Well, what we're trying to do is bring this new energy device to the health market. As you know, deep brain stimulation does help with cognizance and reducing things like Parkinson's disease and things. But normally you have to drill holes in your head and then put the electrodes down in there and then stimulate your brain deep in there. But we've learned how to do that from outside. So that's the technology we're working on right now. We're just introducing a newer model of it this year.
Fascinating work that you're doing. Brooks, how about letting our listeners and viewers who have never had the opportunity of knowing who you are before, tell them about yourself.
Well, first the earth cooled. I
like that line.
I grew up in California, Pasadena, hung around JPL, Caltech, went in the Air Force in 1973. Got a degree in electronics engineering, got out, went to college for seems like a couple decades, got out with a nuclear chemistry degree, which I found not too useful unless I wanted to make fuel for nuclear power plants, which I didn't. So I went into industry, and since that time, I've used my mathematical skills to help high-speed manufacturing reduce waste and eliminate variation, and in the process saved or generated about 10,000 jobs in the U.S. So I'm pretty happy with the career. Congratulations.
What do you see as the top echelon leadership behind the global events that we're all seeing and experiencing these days?
Well, that's a great question. I think it is an organization I call the Global Syndicate. I think it's the best name for it. People call it the Cabal or the Illuminati, or they have various ancient names they assign to it. But I think it's actually a global syndicate, and it's made up of 4 divisions. It has a military division, a political division, a financial division, and then it has what I call the global media empire, which we know as, the 9 media giants, and then 3 tech puppets, I call them. And that basically makes up all the news that most people see. Of course, there's the alternative news like you and me and other programs like ours, where we try to get the real story to people and keep people awake as much as we can. But this organization has pretty much captured every major government of the world, including ours. And we're seeing that internal battle going on inside our own government, not just in the agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations, but also in the state governments. And we're watching this play out before us. And I think we went on a long time asleep. We really didn't know any of this was going on. We went to our jobs and got our, educations and raised
Yeah.
our kids, and we didn't really think about it. But now it's invading everything we do, everything we think, everything we believe, and we're seeing it really for the first time in our lifetimes, maybe in the first time in history. We've really been able to expose this globally and do something about it, keeping ourselves awake and aware.
Brooks, coming up in a few months, you're going to have your midterm elections. How do you see that happening?
Well, there are two forces at work, obviously. One is trying to return to the constitutional government that we were founded under, and the other is trying to usurp that and take us more toward, we can call it fascist. That's kind of a name, but what it really is corporate government, where the giant global corporations have representatives inside our government and in the agencies, and they use those regulatory powers to eliminate competition, which is basically the middle class. It's always been that way, and from time to time it crashes, and I think we're pretty close to that now. So these forces are going to be battling it out in about 40 days in our election. And, as I said, this is just a political arm of the global syndicate. It doesn't have a whole lot of power, but it does have the ability to correct the course if we put the right people in place. As you see when you watch our television, you watch our committees, our congressional and senatorial oversight committees pull these people in and grill them. They can just pretty much sit there and laugh at them. They really have no power. There's nothing they can do. Nobody ever goes to jail. But it does have its effect. And these regulations, if you start cutting them back, it begins to loosen the rope around the middle class's neck, and we're able to do what we do best, which is create commerce.
The attempted insurrection going back to January 6th. How did that affect the United States and its placement in the global marketplace?
Well, again, that's the global media empire putting a name on something that wasn't an insurrection at all. This was 1 million people that came to Washington to say two things. Number one is, we know what you did, and we're here to let you know that we're aware of that. And the second was to back up our constitutional government so that the states themselves could say, we've had a lot of problems in our state election. We'd like to wait until we sift this out before we put our electors up into the college. And then, of course, they just threw open the doors and disrupted the meeting. And really, it wasn't violent at all, not from what I could see. I was there. There was one woman who was shot and killed. That was premeditated murder by anybody's account. But the global media empire has since couched this or turned this into something like an insurrection. It most certainly wasn't. There was much, much more violent and much more insurrection after President Trump was elected, with a series of demonstrations in Washington that just threw trash everywhere and broke windows and burned cars and threatened to blow buildings up. There was none of that on January 6th. None of that. There wasn't any trash on the ground.
Do you think that the election was fixed?
I don't think it was really an election. I think we had an election, but I think there's an organization, I call it Ballots R Us. It was very clear that there was a massive ballot counterfeiting operation going on, and that artificial intelligence was used in 14 states. 6 of them turned out to be key. They were able to warehouse ballots ahead of time, all pre-voted, stop the vote in the middle of the night, make a phone call, get a delivery of those ballots, put them into the system. And this was all filmed. It was all photographed. Everybody saw it. But it's sort of like if you have a marathon race, 26 miles, everybody takes off and runs. And then right at the last mile, a shuttle bus shows up and an old feeble man steps out of the bus, grabs the trophy and says, "I won." And the media just comes in around him and dares anybody to argue with the results.
Where did the media go wrong, and how long ago?
Well, I think the media went wrong in the early 90s when the major mergers started to happen.
Yeah.
At one time, we had about 55 major media companies in the world, and they were all competing for market share because their advertisers wanted it.
Yeah.
And then President Clinton got elected in 92, and a series of mergers began to take place. And we went from 55 to 20 to 9. And so now you basically have 9 white guys that run every single minute of syndicated TV, whether it's cable or broadcast in the United States, basically in the world. And doing that, they're able to control the narrative. And it doesn't matter what program you watch, what channel you turn to. And I mean, you've seen the collages that they have put together of exactly the same phrases being used by the news actors,
Yeah.
and on every single station, on every single program. And you begin to see the collusion that one single mind is creating this narrative, and then it's disseminated through these 9 media heads.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable because, Jefferson once said that the really key to keeping a free nation is the press.
Yeah.
Because the press is we're the people that hold the elected officials' feet to the fire. We're the ones that keep them honest. But when the press falls into this corporate groove where we say what the people will think and what the people will believe, and we put beautiful faces that don't blink when they read the teleprompter, and we watch them and we believe in them and we have faith in them, whether it's Dan Rather or whether it's Kelly or whoever it is that we watch that's our favorite, it's all the same message.
Brooks Agnew was our guest. His website is brooksagnew.com. A lot of talk since you and I have been together these past years, Brooks. We've had COVID. We've had the financial crashes, the housing market crash. And yet there's one major element of the news that isn't, in my opinion, getting the right attention, and that's climate change. In your opinion, is climate change real?
Well, the climate always changes. I'm a mathematician, not a meteorologist, but I can tell you as we go through the statistics and we go back to whenever we've been keeping temperatures and measuring those kinds of things, the Earth temperature undulates. It goes up and down, but since 98 and especially since 2008, the Earth has actually been cooling. And we've had a couple of events recently that are going to exacerbate that. One is the volcano that we just had in the ocean, and that blasted a bunch of water vapor, which is kind of rare. Normally we get a bunch of ash only, but water vapor is kind of unique. When it goes up into the atmosphere, it stays for a long, long time. And what it does is it absorbs infrared energy, which prevents it from reaching the ground and thus warming up the Earth. So we're going to see a significant, measurable temperature drop over the next couple of years because of that volcano.
So it has nothing to do with the carbon emissions?
No, carbon has been on the Earth forever. We're a carbon-based universe. And CO2 is not a global warming gas. In fact, if we cut back on the CO2 much more, we're going to start having a crop crisis, because there won't be enough CO2 to grow the crops at the rate that we've been growing them the last 100 years.
So how are we sold this bill of goods?
Well, this is mostly about tax. What they're trying to do is use a control mechanism. COVID was a try. It was a modified flu virus, which I guess turned out not to be as deadly as they thought it was going to be. About 99% of the people caught it and recovered from it, unless you had already comorbidities or were, old or something. It didn't even affect kids. But then they brought the V word. They brought that in, and they put it out before it was fully tested, and so we're having a lot of injuries from that. But they can't really control the world any more than they already have with that. So they have to use climate change as a way to move massive amounts of money around and be able to bring the middle class to their knees. Believe me, the wealthy don't feel this at all. They still fly around in their jets, and they have their yachts and their SUVs. They're not going to be bothered one bit by any of these regulations. It's basically us that will be regulated.
So is this more weaning of the herd?
No, it's not weaning of the herd. It's basically gathering up all the world's resources into very few hands. It's designed to be a commerce. It's designed to go around and around and around inside our communities. But since everything has gone global, and believe me, climate change is very global organization, all the money is being funneled into a few hands in a very, very small flow of commerce. And that is really going to leave a wasteland on Main Street.
So in your opinion, who's going to be the winner when all this is over? All these dust settles?
Well, I don't really know who's going to win. I know that we have battles all the time, and we do win battles, but the war goes on. I don't know that for thousands of years we've been fighting this war, and I think for as long as we've recorded history, the world has been ruled by basically one man, one guy at a time with his wooden ships. He's ruled the world. That changed in 1776 when a group of guys said, well, we're going to declare independence and make a nation that's where the government is in fear of the people. That's never happened before. And I will say that since that day, well, since 1787, that global syndicate's been trying to get their world back. And once they get the United States out of the way, and they're very close to doing it, there won't be freedom or liberty ever again on the earth. So I guess they win.
How do you see the United States in the future?
That's a very good question, because we've really divided ourselves into a few metropolitan areas. There are about 25 blue cities that control entire states. There's no such thing as a blue state in the United States. There's only blue cities. But those cities, because they are pure democracies inside those states, it's majority rule. So they control their states. And I think that system of a republic is actually going to falter. I don't know that it can be saved. I just don't know if with this current system of government, the way it is, all democracies are doomed to failure. It's been that way since the days of Herodotus. That's why republics are really a better form of government, because they're representative instead of mob rule. But we don't have republics in our states. We have democracies in our states. And so the states will fail one by one. And as they do, they'll begin to pull the entire nation apart.
In your opinion, what part of this battle is being fought by the people who are on the internet 724, 365? I'm talking about the mom, the pops, and the conspiracy theorists, and it seems that
digital warriors. I think a lot of it. I think that's basically the resistance. We're the Rebel Alliance, as it were, and we're fighting the empire. They have all the resources, but they have this mistake that they've made. They think that value is in money, and it isn't. It never was in the money. The value is us. The value is our hands. We're the ones that make stuff. We're the ones that do the labor, plant the crops, forge the steel, put things together, make things work. Without us, there's no value. So what's going to have to happen, and I think it will, and we're probably going to feel it sooner rather than later, is we're going to see a separation between the value and the money. And it's going to be funny to watch, because all those people that think they have all the riches in the world, they're really going to have nothing but money. And money is not going to be what it is that drives the world. We're going to figure out a way to do commerce with one another without that system of exchange. And that's how we're going to beat the system.
But the system was voted in by the population, the majority of the population. So what are we saying? Pardon?
You're absolutely right. And, but like I said, the system that's voted in is not the majority of the nation. It's the majority of the population, because the cities that control their voting machines, like Chicago and LA and New York, New York City is New York State, even though New York State doesn't think anything like the city. You go anywhere in California. I speak at Mount Shasta. I speak in different parts of California and Arizona. They don't think that way at all. They think like you and me. But the major cities, they are the population centers. So even though the majority of the people are electing these representatives that are passing these regulations and these laws, that is not the majority of the country. When you look at a county map of Canada or a county map of the United States, the vast majority of the people believe in God, and they believe in themselves, and they believe in their communities. They don't believe in all this corporation and this corporate stuff. They don't support it. They don't believe in it, and they can get by without it, quite frankly.
But isn't it the corporate stuff that keeps the country going?
It appears that way, but we have done it before, and we can do it again. We don't have to have, shirts from Malaysia. We don't have to have cabbage from Mexico. We don't have to have that stuff. I think Canada and the Freedom Truckers really demonstrated something very powerful.
Well, I've got to tell you, I was against it. I was dead against the Freedom Truckers. I think that they tried to hold the country hostage.
They did.
Yeah,
that's what they felt was their power.
I was totally against it, and I was glad to see what the government did by invoking the Emergencies Act. I think that the truckers, there's a right way and a wrong way to do things, and they took it upon themselves to do it the wrong way.
Yeah, that was their form of rebellion. But what it did is it showed that the people can only take so much, and then they're going to fight back.
The minority,
the best way they can.
The minute minority. The rest of the Canadians were so ticked off at them that we were all applauding whenever there were arrests made, whenever trucks were seized. There's a right way to and a wrong way to do it. They did it the wrong way.
Well, we try the right way as much as we can. We're a cheek turning people. We feign violence, and we play the game as well as anybody else. But when it gets to the point where 75% of our income is being confiscated, we don't have the freedom to move. We don't have the freedom to marry. We don't have the freedom to own property. Then we fight back.
What do you mean you don't have the freedom to own property?
Well, this is what's happening in our country anyway. Property is out of reach, and they've made the ability to buy a property out of reach of the average person. So now the interest rates are up over 7%, and people just can't afford to buy a home now. But
if people can't afford to buy a home, isn't that the responsibility of the person, not the government? Like, if you're not making enough money if you're making enough money to buy a $50,000 home and you're trying to buy a $200,000, $300,000 home.
The trick is to find the $50,000 home. There isn't one in the U.S., that's for sure.
I look at it and I say, okay, fine. If you want to buy a home, you can't afford one right now, find another job, work again, do something in order to earn the revenue that'll give you the ability to buy. So why is it always?
Because those things are supposed to be driven by market forces. They're supposed to be free enterprise. They're not supposed to be manipulated from the top down to prevent the middle class from progressing, from holding people down. That's what the people see. They see an oppressive government that is basically blocking the bounty of a nation or the bounty of the world from the average person. And the average
is it possible that it's the lower class people who are actually doing the damage because the government is trying to do something for the rest of the country?
Well, that is a possibility. I do see, for instance, we just had a Walmart that was a mass looting event where over 100 youth just came in and just ransacked the whole store. I don't think that people are entitled to just go in and take what they want.
Of course not.
Get a job, work, earn the money, and then go buy the thing that you want. And I think we have also driven ourselves into debt that we can't repay. Students, I think the average car loan right now is $700 a month. Who can afford $700 a month for wheels plus insurance? Just buy a used car. Stop buying new cars, and when you
That's
do, the
right.
price will come down.
Once again, it's the ego of the person who wants to buy the expensive car, the person who wants to buy all these little gadgets, these toys. They want to live better than the Joneses are living, and they put themselves in debt, and then they cry, well, what the hell? I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
They've created their own dilemma, and they expect society to bail them out.
Well, sometimes the dilemma is created. For instance, universities. When I went to college, education was expensive, but it was affordable. When I graduated after, 12 years, I had $38,000 student loan. Obviously, I got a lot of scholarships, but I also worked while I was in school, and I paid off my student loan just like everybody else does. But I talk to people that are graduating now, and they're graduating with student loans of $200,000. You could pay $1,000 a month for a long time and not pay a $200,000 student loan off. That's a lot of money. And it's because the universities have raised their tuition prices because the federal government has basically created endless loans to be able to pay those prices. If they would not have manipulated that debt structure, the universities would have kept their tuitions reasonable and people could afford to go to college.
Once again, we have to look at the other side of the coin. How much does it cost to operate a college? How much does it cost to pay these professors and these people?
You don't see any universities going broke.
No,
they all have huge multi-billion-dollar endowments.
So that must say something for the necessity of these universities and colleges. If people have enough faith to put these endowments forward. Once again, if you can't afford it, don't go.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. I go to welding school, go to carpentry school, get a trade. Believe me, you'll graduate quicker and you'll make more money over a lifetime.
That's right. A millwright right now is averaging $65 an hour here in Canada.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And a millwright's good money, and you'll never be out of a job.
Exactly.
There's always stuff to do.
Hey, Brooke, you and I have to take our second break, I should say. Exo Nation, Brooks Agnew is our guest. BrooksAgnew.com. We'll both be back after this break. Don't go away. Brooks Agnew is our guest of this hour, BrooksAgnew.com. Brooks, since you and I have last talked, I don't think they were planning moon missions back then. What do you think about the current state of the space industry because they want to go back to the moon?
I have a lot of feelings about this. When I was young, I wanted to be an asteroid miner because I think space is fascinating and there's plenty of resources out there. I'm sorry that we haven't been to the moon since 1972, if we did go then. But there are a lot of resources on the moon. I just don't know that they're approaching it correctly. I think the Artemis 1, 2, and 3 missions are a waste of money, to tell you the truth. I think the Gateway project is kind of a waste of money to build a kind of way station in space between cis-lunar space and cis-Mars space. I don't think there's anything on Mars for us other than maybe access to the asteroid belt. But the moon is something else. The moon has a 10,000-year fuel supply sitting in craters on the south pole of the moon, and it's just 2 days away. And if we could access that fuel supply, we would solve our energy crisis here on this planet for a long, long time with no radiation.
Yeah.
And so I'm for a moon colony.
What is it? Helium-3?
Yes, helium-3. Yeah. We discovered it. Well, not by accident. We really wanted to find out what was on the south pole of the moon, but the L-Cross mission is what discovered it. And I'm sorry that it's taken this long to build a mission to go there and try to harvest it. But I think we have two programs, too. We have SpaceX, which is, I think, approaching it from one way. And then we have NASA, which is, again, just another government administration that spends a tremendous amount of money. And I think they spend a lot of money. They don't get a lot done, even though we have over 100 space programs going right now. That's mostly for information. This would really be for commerce. And I'm don't understand why there isn't international competition for getting to that crater and starting to harvest helium-3.
What do you think is going to happen with the other countries that are all also going to the moon? Why, isn't this going to be a little bit of a range war?
Yeah, not a little bit. It's going to be a lot, because the nation that controls the moon will eventually control the Earth. And China has, of course, the technology to go there. They've been there for years, roving around with their Jade Rabbit rover. They've taken really the only high-resolution strip photography of the moon. So we've got great detail of the entire surface of the moon put together. The Chinese own all that high-res data. So yeah, it is definitely a competition. Whoever gets there first and sets up the colony first is going to be a target, but also going to be a leader.
All right, so let's go back to the supposed, alleged first lunar landing with, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin. Since the U.S. is supposed to have been, I'm trying to pick my words very carefully here. If the U.S. did in fact land on the moon, does that not make the moon U.S. property?
No, not necessarily, any more than the first person that sailed the ocean owns the ocean. I think it's just another property. It's just another rock. So I don't think there's actually ownership of real estate on the moon. So no, I would disagree with that. I think if they actually made it there, and I think there's a lot of debate about whether they made it there or not. I think even all the moon rocks have been lost. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but I have lots of friends that worked in and around NASA. Obviously, I grew up around JPL. I'm fascinated by the space program. I'm a consultant for a couple of companies that build things to go into space. So I understand the industry very well. Where we have our doubts is that now we're struggling with the technology to get, say, Orion to go around the moon a few times and come back and splash down in the water. We're sending mannequins this time. But in 1969, we sent men. And that, I think, is probably why we probably made it to the moon, because it's easy to make an aluminum can to hold enough air to keep guys alive for a few days. But it would have been impossible in those days to land something remote on the moon. The gravity is way too not the same all the way around the moon, because the gravitational field of the moon is very lumpy. But we put pilots in those things and they could fly. And that's why I think we actually did land on the moon, because those guys were immensely talented and well-tested test pilots, and they could man that ship and land it on the moon and take it off.
So I can understand going to the moon, but I'm still puzzled about why the attention on Mars.
Yeah, me too, because I don't think Mars offers us anything. If we build a colony on Mars, it's only going to be to harvest the asteroid belt, because it's kind of local to Mars, like the moon is local to us here. I don't think there's anything. The way our propulsion system is right now, taking 7 months to get to Mars, it isn't practical. I'm just going to say that right now. We take 100 people to Mars, 50 of them are going to die within a year. It'll be a disaster. And if anybody, God forbid, gets pregnant on Mars, that baby's a Martian. It's never coming back to Earth. It will never make it. It will never live here. It will have to be raised and live on Mars only. It will never come back to Earth.
With the amount of money that NASA and other government agencies are spending on what I consider to be useless projects, if they were to put that money back into the people that they're supposed to be taking care of, it'd be a whole lot different world. For example, the homeless situation. Unbelievable. No matter whether you're in the United States or up here in Canada, homeless all over the place.
Yeah.
Now, living in tents, living on the streets, living in subways, living in abandoned buildings.
Well,
why waste money going to Mars?
There's only so much you can do, but that's a problem that's multidimensional. I myself I one time I owned a quarter of a city block in the city that I lived in, but
Mhm.
all my debt, all my buildings that I owned and vacant lots that I owned that I was developing were financed through a small bank that had only 8 branches. And when the savings and loan crisis hit and all the savings and loans went broke,
Yeah.
I lost my city block. It went broke. They asked for all the loans to be paid off. Obviously, I couldn't do that, didn't have the revenue stream to do that. I
Right.
was relying on them to be financially stable enough for me to make the payments with my rents that I was collecting. So I went from being worth, this was 92. I went from being worth about $1.5 million to being worth nothing overnight.
Oh my
And I had
gosh.
4 small kids at home. So we ended up buying a tent and moving into a KOA for that summer. I built 3 homes for a large national company that was building homes in Tennessee. And I
Mhm.
made enough money off those 3 homes that by the time it started to get cool in October, we were able to get into an apartment. So I was homeless for a while, but I worked my way back off the street. And I've taken supplies, blankets, food, Tupperware, and things like that to tent cities here in North Carolina and South Carolina. And I've talked to those people. Some of them are quite smart and quite accomplished. They just hit a rough bump in the road, don't have enough money to get into an
Mhm.
apartment, don't have a permanent address for a while, and it turns into a spiral you just can't get out of. So there needs to be a resource for those people that have hit that bump, down on their luck, need a way to get back into the workforce and start being productive again and getting a roof over their heads. There's another part of that community that chooses to be homeless. They
Yeah.
just don't want to be part of the system.
Yeah.
They don't want identifications. They don't want driver's licenses. They don't want to own anything.
Right.
They're just foragers, I'll put it that way, and they
Well,
choose that lifestyle. And there's a lot of mental illness that
oh, big time. A
involved
lot
with
of
that,
drug abuse as well.
and drug abuse.
You
Absolutely.
know, up here in Ontario, if you're homeless, you can get up to $1,200 and some odd dollars every month, and you don't pay taxes. The government pays your dental. The government pays everything, and you don't pay taxes. My idea
And
is,
do people
hey,
climb up out of that morass, or do they use that money to say, "Well, I'm comfortable. I
that's
got to."
exactly what they do.
Wow.
Yeah, like
I don't
why
think
go to
that
work?
helps. I don't think that helps.
It doesn't. It doesn't. There's plenty of jobs here in Niagara we've got vineyards, we've got orchards, we've got everything. And you see signs all over the place, help wanted,
Mm-hmm.
signing bonuses. And yet these people would rather live in a tent, not pay taxes. It's in one part of the town when the homeless get fed by the good people, it's like a feeding at a zoo.
Yeah.
Plus and then you've got the unscrupulous landlords who charge some homeless people $50 a month to let them use their mailing address so they can get more money. Like, I don't know
I
about
don't know
you.
the solution to it.
Yeah.
I've seen several proposed,
Yeah.
but mathematically, I just don't see how they could work. It has to come from the person themselves. They have to say,
Yeah.
I'm tired of sleeping on the sidewalk and shivering myself to sleep
Sure.
each night. I'm gonna use my talent and go get a job, and 5 years later, I'll look back at this like a bad dream.
Brooke, I'll tell you something. I agree with social projects, social assistance as a hand up.
Mhm.
Help people who really who've had bad breaks and they know it and they want to get themselves better again. But to see a lot of these people here where they just laugh at you because you're working, you're paying taxes.
Yeah, they game
And
the system.
yeah,
They game the system, and know where all the handouts are and all the windows are, and they work
they
them
sure do.
like. My mother used to tell me, if you put half the effort into mowing the lawn that you put into getting out of mowing the lawn, you'd have it done.
You and I have to take our final break. Please stand by. Exo Nation, Brooks Agnew is our guest, and his website is brooksagnew.com. I'm Rob McConnell. We'll be back. Hey, Brooks, first of all, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you, my friend. And
Always a pleasure
congratulations
on your great program.
Thanks, buddy. Congratulations on all the thing you're doing. Tell us about any new books you've got.
Well, I wrote a book series called The Birth Trilogy. It's spelled Bearth, so it's kind of a play on words.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a story about a different twist on the rapture, where the earth is actually a living thing. And technically speaking, it is, because it
Yeah.
respirates, it spontaneously brings forth life, it resists toxins, those kinds of things. And the ancients believed that the earth had a kind of consciousness about it, and that the race of man on it also had a consciousness, and we lived in a symbiotic relationship with the planet. And when the more part of mankind became wicked, earth would have this like allergic reaction. So there'd be like a hurricane or earthquake or a volcano or something, and it would spank the race of mankind back down to a few tribes, and they would start over again.
I love it.
Well, now we've got 8 billion people alive on the earth, and about half are wicked and about half are good, and earth can't decide whether to destroy us or release its bounty to us. So it decides to split into its paradisaical origin of a higher earth, a spirit earth that was created in the book of Genesis, and the physical earth, or the temporal earth, which is the rock and metal one that's in orbit around our sun. So as the planets begin coming apart, the race of man begins to divide as well. They resonate with different planets. And this division becomes the unsolvable problem that you have to have in a series like this. And it has turned into a marvelous story. Millions of people have heard it and they're excited about it. And so we're trying to bring it to TV. So we're now courting the networks. We've written a lot of scripts. We've won some script contests with it. So we've got some Wheat Straw. That's kind of the award thing that goes with writing scripts.
Right.
And we're going to try to get it on TV. And then the last book, of course, we covered a couple of times ago on your program, which was Charm of Favor. I'm writing a sequel to that, which
really?
it is turning into, it was going to be a pretty simple project, because Charm of Favor is a story of a war that breaks out inside the Pentagon, and it spreads throughout the government. So we have kind of a deep state against the people's state, as it were. We're kind of seeing it play out right now.
Exactly.
The sequel to it uses the same characters, but the scope of the war leaves the Pentagon and the U.S. and spreads throughout the world. So now the weapons and the cost of failure is insurmountable, and so it may turn into 2 books. I'm 13 chapters into it, and it could just go so many different directions. But what I try to do with these books is make sure that the technology is spot on and all the events are real. They're actually happening around us. I just changed the names. But as soon as you start reading the books, you begin to resonate immediately with it, going, hey, this is actually happening. And so it begins to, you get more and more excited about it. And I have a lot of inside information, things that are going on in Ukraine, things that are going on in China. I have business partners in Kazakhstan and Ukraine and in China, Wuhan. And so I get information that feeds the technology of the book, which makes it much more real.
Brooks, I've got about a minute and a half left. Let our listeners know more about you, where they can find you, wherever you are these days, and where they can buy your books.
The easiest way to find me is just brooksagnew.com. Everything links through there. I do have a podcast every Wednesday and Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And the books are available all on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and I don't sell in bookstores because I can't afford the book insurance on all the books now. So we just sell online, and it does very well. If you buy the paperback or the electronic version of the book, I will give you the audio books for free. So if you're not a great reader, don't worry about it. I read them for you.
Brooks, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you. Continued success, and I look forward to the next time we get together, buddy.
Absolutely.
Take care, Brooks. Exonation, Brooks Agnew has been our guest this hour, www.brooksagnew.com. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. When I come back at the top of the hour, Gloria Prema is going to be talking how science is working to prove spirituality. Now, there's a concept, a novel concept. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Don't go away.